A man accidentally misstepped and his entire body was suspended in midair, instantly losing control and sliding towards a cliff. Behind him was a nearly 100-meter-high cliff face. One misstep would result in him being shattered to pieces. In a panic, the man desperately grasped at the sand on the cliff with both hands, finally bringing his body to a halt. The sensation of his nails tearing away from his flesh was excruciating, but he dared not make a sound, as the slightest disturbance could cause him to lose his balance and plummet off the cliff. Although the man had his hands firmly planted in the sand, the cliff was too soft to support his weight, and he began to uncontrollably slide towards the edge. At the critical moment, he resorted to spreading his legs to increase his surface area, successfully stopping his descent. Just then, his mobile phone began to ring in his rucksack. If he could answer it, he might be able to get help from the person on the other end. However, if he reached into his bag, he could easily lose his balance and fall off the cliff. But if he didn't answer the call, he would miss his best chance of survival. After careful consideration, Mark decided to take a chance. He pressed his face against the sandy soil and reached out his left hand to unzip his rucksack. Just as he was about to answer the call, disaster struck. Mark lost his balance and fell straight towards the cliff edge, but fortunately, he managed to avoid going over, narrowly escaping death once again. Below him was a nearly 100-meter drop, and the sea was full of sharp rocks. The man was terrified, and a sense of fear and helplessness spread throughout his body. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration, as if he had thought of something. He began to pray. It turned out that he was calculating the interval between the waves crashing against the rocks. After confirming it several times, the man found the right moment and made a sharp turn, successfully landing in the sea. Although he didn't die from the fall, the water was too shallow, and his waist still hit the rocks, causing him to lose consciousness briefly. Fortunately, the man quickly regained consciousness and swam back to the surface, choosing the nearest reef to climb onto. The tension in his nerves completely relaxed at this moment, but just then, he felt a sharp pain in his palm. He realized that a 10-centimeter-long wound had been cut into his hand, a shocking sight that he could hardly bear to look at. After composing himself, the man got up to leave, but as soon as he took a step, there was a cracking sound, and he fell heavily onto the rocks, passing out. He didn't know how long he had been unconscious, but he was finally awakened by the waves. He tried to move his body but found that he couldn't move his legs. It turned out that when he had jumped off the cliff, his pelvis had been shattered by the reef, and he was gradually losing sensation in his feet. It was only then that he finally remembered that he had a mobile phone, but it had been submerged in seawater for a long time and was completely ruined. The man helplessly looked up at the sky and began to shout for help, but in this desolate stretch of sea, no one appeared, and there was no response to his cries. The man took off his shirt and made a simple bandage for the wound on his hand, then began to look around for a way out. Surveying his surroundings, a small island in the distance was his only hope for survival.